Hello everyone! Today I'll be going over some great exercises that will get your creative juices flowing and some that will help you improve your drawing skills in the long run. Let's get straight to it then. For this exercise, the tools I use are watercolors or colored inks, watercolor paper or slightly thicker sketchbook paper, and a pen or a marker. You can also do this exercise digitally. Feel free to use tools that you are most comfortable with. The exercise itself is simple enough. You make random shapes on paper with a color or colors of your choosing. Then, once you have the shapes ready, draw something inside that the shape reminds you of. This is a really great exercise to do as a warm-up. It also helps to improve your visual problem-solving skills. If you are one of those artists, like me, who always ends up sketching the same thing over and over, this exercise will push you out of your comfort zone to draw things that you normally don't draw. While doing this exercise, at times I really needed to stare at the shapes for a long time to figure out what characters or objects would fill the space inside of them, and in what kind of pose. It doesn't really matter if the proportions are wonky or if you make mistakes. The main purpose of this exercise is to get your mind thinking in a new creative way. This was a really fun exercise to get me warmed up for the day. I am also very surprised what I ended up eventually drawing into the shapes, and will most likely revisit some of these subject matters in the future, since I really liked sketching these. My personal favorites are the vampire scene, the shivering zombie, and the hawk tamer. This practice that I picked up several years ago, it is not really an exercise, but a habit that at least I have found very beneficial when it comes to improving your drawing skills. In the past, I used to do most of my sketching with a basic HB pencil. Then in high school, I decided to try what it would be like to sketch only with a pen, to not be able to erase my mistakes at all. I can with confidence say that by picking up this habit, my skills started to improve at a much faster pace. The decision to start freehand sketching with a pen helped me improve in several ways. For example, I became a lot quicker and was able to produce more sketches and finished pieces. When I could no longer erase my mistakes, I couldn't get stuck in a single sketch trying to make that one thing perfect. Whether it was an anatomy issue or anything I wanted to change, I found it better to move on to the next sketch. Rather than, for example, spending 30 minutes to get one sketch of a character's head just right by erasing some things along the way, I could instead draw 6 different heads, and honestly, learn a lot more in that same time by constantly moving forward to a new sketch. Sketching is the part in my creative process where I either enjoy it the most and could linger for hours on end, or when I feel the most stuck. At times I need to remind myself that in order for me to be able to create finished pieces of art by painting, I need to let go of the sketching phase and actually move on to painting. At first it might feel frustrating to not be able to correct your mistakes, but over time, at least I have learned to let go and move on to the next sketch, since I know that the next one might be better and I might learn something entirely new. For me, sketching like this is a way to draw as much as possible in a short amount of time. Then, if some sketch or a part of it inspires me to finish it, then I'll move on to working with it some more. This method, I think, is a remnant of a university class I had, where we made 100 sketches, chose about 10 best of those, and worked on them further. Then, from those, we picked just 3 sketches and worked on them even further, and then finally chose the best of those 3 to make into a finished work. When sketching, I often rely on the same subject that I like to draw over and over again. With the poses of the 2 whole characters on the right, I can definitely notice the ways I made mistakes on the anatomy and such. But if I were to continue to work on one of these sketches to a finished piece, I could fix those mistakes later on. One of the best exercises that you can do by freehand sketching is 1-minute croquis. There are great resources online for 1-minute still life poses, in either YouTube videos with pictures of real people or websites with 3D models. You can also first do a session where you take several photos of yourself in different poses and then time yourself drawing the poses you made. Making croquis is something that I do rarely, but I should definitely do them more. Making them would help me get better at freehanding more complex poses for my characters. There are so many amazing artists out there, so many beautiful artworks you have yet to see, some that might have a bigger impact on you than you might think possible. For the last 2 years, visiting galleries and museums has not been possible, but immersing yourself with other artists' works is more and more easier online. There are many possible ways to learn from other artists and their works when it comes to developing your own creative voice. But since this is a really vast subject, for this video I'll be going through making art reproductions. The best way to learn by making copies is to choose an artwork that you feel challenges your skills. Maybe an artwork that uses color palette that you rarely use, is made with a technique you don't use yourself daily, or that has a challenging subject matter to you. It's best to make a copy of a work that you visually enjoy, one that you would think would be fun to make yourself. That way the process won't feel tedious, and at the end you can possibly display the finished piece at your house or studio space. For extra practice, I would recommend choosing an artist whose style is not too close to your own. That way, there is much more for you to learn in the process. When it comes to posting copies or studies based on other artists' artworks on social media, I would recommend against it. Art reproductions, in my opinion, are meant for the betterment of your personal skills, so that you can learn from making them and implement the things you have learned to your own artworks. I've come to learn that being an artist, for me at least, means to constantly learn new things and implement the things I've learned into my art making process. Sometimes I feel it's good to get back to the very basics and do studies from still life. For this exercise, go to nature and pick any plant you are allowed to take with you. Make sure not to pick endangered species and be mindful of your surroundings when walking in nature. If you don't have any nature nearby, go to the vegetable and fruit section at your store and pick a subject from there. Next, you'll study the plant by drawing and painting it. Do at least 3 drawings and 2 colored paintings of your plant. If your plant can be cut into pieces, you can study the cross-section and draw or paint it in pieces, or in different forms if you can find the same plant in different stages of its life. Study the shape and the form of the plant, the texture in its surface, and how you can depict those things in your drawings and your paintings. Can you notice if there is some kind of a pattern or a rule that the plant follows? Pay close attention to, for example, how the seeds are laid out. In what formation do the leaves grow from the stem? There might be a certain pattern on how the plant grows and how it looks. If at all possible, this exercise would be best done with a good light source, preferably just one light source, so you can also study how light interacts with the plant, which parts are left in the shadow and which are the lightest. This is a very simple exercise, but it'll help you develop your skills in a multitude of ways. You can enhance your observational skills as well as your understanding of 3-dimensional objects. For this exercise, I picked a pear as my subject. It had been quite a long while since I last made still life paintings or drawings, in such detail at least. Nowadays, I usually move straight to stylizing my subject matter immediately. This was a really fun exercise. Even though I feel the black and white sketches are lacking in contrast and finesse, I'm really happy how the painted pears look, since I used just a little time on these studies. If you are feeling stuck, uninspired, or unmotivated, this could be a nice exercise to do. trying a new medium is for me a good way to get out of a rut and start to feel motivated to create art again. I recommend a medium that is not too close to the medium you are used to. Some exciting mediums I have wanted to try are sculpting, lino cutting, and collage making. If you mostly paint digitally, I recommend trying some kind of a traditional tool instead. For this exercise, I chose wax crayons. It is not a completely new medium since I have used crayons as a child, but it is a medium that is far from the ones that I'm used to in my daily work, so I am looking forward to the unexpected results. Since the idea in this exercise is to get out of one's comfort zone, I also went straight into sketching onto an A3 paper. I usually sketch really small and then enlarge my sketches digitally and print them. I really needed to work on a bigger paper, since getting fine details with the crayons was quite a challenge. I am really happy with the grainy look of the medium. I've been wanting to implement some playfulness and messiness from sketching into my works, and this medium let me experiment with just that. I am also really happy with the end result. The only downside was that I wish I had had more color options to choose from, and that the crayons weren't so messy to use. Next time I'll wear gloves, I guess. I hope you enjoyed this video and will try some of these exercises yourself. If you do, let me know what you thought and if you learned anything new.